There are not 45,000 different religions of Christianity or versions of Christianity. This number right here is being misused. It's part of demographics. It's statistical analysis of different church organizations. Now, when we look at it, it has some major problems whenever people misuse these numbers. The first thing that people don't realize is that the statistical data counts the same exact denomination differently depending on the countries it's in. Because the different countries have different administrative bodies, therefore they count them as different denominations. In reality, if you take like the Baptist Church or the Methodist Church, the Lutheran Church, it doesn't matter. Even the Catholic Church is considered divided along this as well. So if you take the Roman Catholic Church in the USA versus the Roman Catholic Church in Canada versus the Roman Catholic Church in Germany, that's 3 different denominations right there according to these statistics. Now, those of us with brains know that, no, that's not actually true. That's one Catholic Church. It's not 3 different ones. But those statistics do that. So as soon as you sit there, go, oh, well, let's take the Methodist Church in the USA, the Methodist Church in Germany, the Methodist Church in the Philippines, and pull them all back into one, then suddenly you cut that number down quite a bit, well below 45,000 right now. The next problem is they also count sub-denominations differently as well. So, for example, you have out of the Methodist Church, you have the United Methodist Church, you have the Free Methodist Church as examples of sub-denominations. Out of the Baptists, you have the Bible Baptists, you have the Free Will Baptists. Those are considered sub-denominations. Sub-denominations all basically share the same liturgy, the same confessional. It's just minor, very minor structural changes or differences, or very minor differences in social structure. It's not a significant difference to say these are entirely different. I mean, basically, an equivalency would be taking 2 different apples off the same tree and going, oh my God, those are 2 different apples entirely, just because they look slightly different. They're both apples. You know, you can't actually say that they're different things because they're both apples. Same with sub-denominations. So as soon as you pull all the sub-denominations back into a single entity, so United Methodists and Free Methodists all come back and just be Methodists, you cut that number down even more, significantly more. But the biggest problem with counting these 45,000 different denominations comes from the fact that every single individual non-denominational church is considered a separate denomination. All the non-denominational churches essentially share the exact same theology. They're mainstream Protestant theology. They are not so far deviated that you have to say, oh, those are entirely different denominations. They are so different. No, they're not. They are not so different from one another. So if you say, okay, well, the non-denominational churches will just lump in as a single, this is Protestant theology, Protestant denomination. Well, now you've cut that number down to way below 45,000. In fact, you're probably cutting it down to less than 100 by that point in time. The other thing you need to consider is that just because something calls itself a Christian doesn't mean it's a Christian. And these statistics count everything that calls itself a Christian into those statistics. If you do not follow the Jesus of the Nicene Creed, the Jesus of the Apostles' Creed, the Jesus of the Gospels, you are not considered a Christian. You have to subscribe to the Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, the teachings of the New Testament, the teachings of the Apostles. If you do not subscribe to those, if your Jesus is different from the Jesus described in those creeds and the Gospels, you are not considered a Christian, and therefore all of those get removed from the numbers. In all reality, by the time you are done, you have somewhere between 1 and 2 dozen denominations of Christianity. And these 1 to 2 dozen differences are largely minor differences that are not salvation issues. They're all united with they're all prescribed to the Nicene Creed. They're all prescribed to the Apostles' Creed. The theology is the same, very minor differences between the different denominations. So in all reality, it's really between 1 and 2 dozen denominations. Like Baptist and Methodist would be 2 different denominations. Lutherans, Presbyterians, those are your denominational differences, and it's not that many.